making this happen, that the general public has to have greater confidence in the teachers and the administrators. And in doing so, it means that we've got to develop some method of making some kind of an assessment in reference to our teachers. Now, how do we assess our teachers? First, for example, we know that Governor Alexander had his Better Schools program. Governor McWhorter has a 21st Century program that's coming up soon. All of these are looking toward making some kind of an assessment of the performance of teachers. How do we do that, and how can we be sure that we're doing the right thing when we make those assessments?
Well, maybe we can never be sure, but in the documents that you mentioned, teachers will buy into the program. The first thing, we always talking about needing more money and upgrading the teaching profession, and the Better Schools program, the Career Ladder program, that's one way to do that. But a program like the Career Ladder program, it's not necessarily designed to improve your teaching quality. You go through a series of evaluations, and you get more money for doing this. And that certainly is fine. That's a good way. And also, you have the Professional Standards Teaching Board that's coming out with having teachers to be professionally certificated, and that, I see that as being a way to gain respect for teachers. It's the same as if a physician or lawyer and other professions that you must be board certified. And I feel that teachers will buy into that, because basically teachers want to be upgraded. They want to be the very best. So I suppose this is what we might say.
I think though that we're in a trap here. We don't trust people, so we assess them, and we assess them in ways which define what they do in narrow terms and have them teach to tests that in fact are not related to the curriculum. I think people don't realize that these national tests we talk about have about a 50% overlap with the curriculum we all think we love and care about, and so peculiar. And we need to recognize that among the nations we compare ourselves with, we evaluate teachers much more than anybody else does. We got to come back to this issue of a bond between the various folks who have a responsibility for the development of our children, a level of trust that will come not out of assessment, it seems to me, but out of bringing people into the schools, having people understand the relationship between education and the welfare society, and breaking down those barriers that have been built up in really all sectors between schools and business and homes, etc. And everybody's to blame for that. I mean, it's not a matter of the schools didn't do it or the parents didn't do it. We've just got to stop down and say, well, what if we started all over again? Would the first thing we do set up tests for teachers? I don't think so.
Very good.
I think what you said, Dr. Hawley, about starting all over again, we basically need to, the restriction of education, I think that's pretty much on time. We've talked about some things haven't changed. I mean, schools basically are the same. And Dr. Hawley mentioned being accountable. The first thing you want to do, go in with pencil and paper and test teachers. But that's not what it's all about at all. Of course, you want to be accountable. But, too, the main thing is to have a program so that everybody understands and everybody works comfortably. And the goal is for the students to be successful.
In making this assessment, I think one of the things that continues to run through my mind is the lack of respect that many teachers, and perhaps I might be overstating this, but I think that many teachers feel that they don't have the kind of respect in the classroom today that teachers of an earlier generation had. Dr. Hawley, how would you define this lack of respect, indeed, if there is a lack of respect, and what would you see as some of the causes for this lack of respect that we have toward our teachers now?
Well, I'm not sure whether kids have less respect for teachers. Certainly, I think it's true that one of the things people realize is that we have more kids staying in school than before. We talk about the dropout rate. We have fewer kids dropping out today than ever before in history, which means we have kids in school who never had to be in school before, who are coming from homes where they themselves didn't need this education to survive and be successful in their own terms. So I think when we talk about a lack of respect for teachers, it's more of a social phenomenon rather than a disrespect, although certainly there are kids who act out in school and who in some number of cases enact violence on teachers. But I think my sense of it as a non-teacher at the moment is the sense that that's the wrong focus. The focus is to say, if the society as a whole valued education, then that kind of anti-school behavior, which is really what it represents, wouldn't exist. Again, we don't see that kind of thing in most other countries we compare ourselves with, and it's not because our schools are less humane.
Well, this lack of discipline, let me make sure we get this point in, because I'd like for you to respond to this. This lack of discipline that we find in some of our school systems today, do you think that that is the responsibility of the teachers, or are we asking the teachers to do more now than we've ever asked the teachers to do before? Are we asking teachers to be disciplinarians, for example, rather than teachers? And I think that there's a distinction between
I think teachers will always be responsible for the discipline in their classrooms, but we're dealing with almost a different kind of child. Children now are exposed to a lot, and we always want to say television, the media, and that encourages them in the violence. But another thing, the news media sometimes will print all of these things, and a lot of negative things, negative stories are exposed to the public, and many good things happen in school. And a lot of times, these are isolated cases. But as far as discipline in the classroom, I don't think we're asking teachers to be more responsible. We are the educators, and we want the parents to do as much as you can do in the home, but we still have to take the responsibility and work with, and from one thing to the other, we're public education means that we work with all the children, anybody who's sent, all the kids who come, regardless of the circumstances that they come, that we are responsible for them.
Dr. Hawley, in this last minute that we've got here, if you had to send a message to the governor and other policymakers in the state of Tennessee in terms of reform, what would you tell them today?
I'd say, well, it's trite, but I'd say be bold. And I think we see that's what the leadership is talking about. They're talking about big changes. They're talking about changes that are going to cost money, but more important than that, that will bring about, if they're enacted, fundamental changes of the sort we've been talking about. And so I'm optimistic about that. I look at the plans that are coming before the legislature, the governor is supporting, and I think instead of I can beat up on any old idea just like you can, I think now's the time for us to be constructive critics, but mainly constructive. Right. So I wish I could have said something more hostile to this thing, but I think we've got to kind of say, now it's time to get on with it and stop.
Very good. Any final comments? We've got about a half a minute here before we wrap it up today.
I feel the same. I feel very positive about change. It's time for change. We have got to be about change. And we need a different way of, we've talked about a different way of funding for education, and that's going to be the basis of us getting about
what we can do beyond that.
What can we,
once we get the funding together, everything else ought to fall in place.
Not
exactly
just like that.
We need to start from what we're going to do with that money.
Right. Okay, very good.
And it's not just more money.
Very good. Yeah. And let me thank both of you for coming by and giving us this information about reform in education in Tennessee. We know that only 30 minutes certainly will not cover all of the areas of education reform in the state of Tennessee, but I think it gave our audience a fairly good idea of some of the major problems that we have dealing with the reform movement in the state of Tennessee. And again, let me encourage you to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comment.